Hello and welcome to our video. My name is Kai. I'm the founder of SeriousWatches, and today I want to be talking a little bit about our history, who we are and what we stand for. Since you're watching this video, you may have already purchased a watch from us or maybe considering doing so, and you might also be wondering, who are these people? Well, that's why we're making this video, to tell a little bit about ourselves. But to start, I want to do a little wrist check, and today I'm wearing the Zealous Hammerhead SeriousWatches limited edition watch. This is a watch that we did in collaboration with Zealous, and this is a special limited edition just for us, where we made 80 pieces, which have long since sold. But considering this was our first limited edition, it makes sense to wear it when we're talking about our history. I founded SeriousWatches back in 2011. I was actually working as a solicitor, and I was just a tremendous watch geek. And I've always been a big watch enthusiast ever since my young childhood. I remember my grandfather was actually an engineer. He'd make clock movements in his spare time. He'd lock himself up in the basement for hours on end building clock movements from scratch. And as a little boy, that was like the most fascinating thing in the world, how he'd make very small pieces that all work together, and he'd do all these calculations without Wikipedia and Google and that sort of thing, and he built them. And that, as a young boy, that was incredible. And even though I never got into engineering, much to the disappointment of my grandfather, my passion for watches did stay. And so back in 2011, I was probably on a watch forum arguing, and I ran into a brand called Orient. And Orient is a Japanese company. We're still a dealer of Orient, so we have a very special connection with them. And at the time, I really just wanted to buy an Orient watch. And I went to the local dealer, they didn't have any. I went online in the Netherlands, couldn't find any. Went on the internet in Europe, and I just couldn't find a proper dealer of Orient watches. So I got in touch with Orient in Japan. They referred me to a distributor in the Netherlands. I got in touch with them, and I ended up talking to one of their representatives. And we really had a good chat about watches, and I asked him, why aren't you doing more with Orient? And he said, well, the problem is that most brick and mortar stockists are unable to convey the story of Orient, because they make mechanical watches from Japan, great value for money, but you need to explain what you're selling, and most brick and mortar stores didn't really want to put in the effort. And I sort of had an epiphany, and I made a split-second decision. I said, how about if we sell, or I said, I sell Orient watches on a web page as a web retailer? And they seemed quite agreeable to it, and I may have glossed over the fact that I did not really have any retail experience, and that the business that I owned sort of didn't have anything to do with watches. But we got there, and we got a good agreement, and they seemed happy with anyone really putting in the effort to sell these watches. And for me, it was great, because I got to combine my hobby with some sort of work. So every day as I got home from work as my solicitor, I put down my suitcase and I go to my computer and learn about how to make a web store and how this actually works. How can I accept payments online, and how to do the shipping, and so on. And pretty much everyone, all my friends and family, they just said that I was clinically insane for doing this, because it was 2011, it was in the middle of the economic crisis, everything was going downhill, business going out of business, and so on. It was just a bad idea, according to everyone. So when the webpage finally launched back in November 2011, I really proved them all right, because it didn't really take off at first. But I kept at it. I didn't just stop. I kept on doing some advertising, doing a little bit of hustling, and I just really kept working on it. And after a little while, it really started to take off. I mean, I started getting a solid stream of sales and people appreciating Orient watches. As I just said before, it was the middle of the economic crisis. That was a pretty bad time. Also for my employer at the time, because I was still working full-time. I would be in my lunch break answering customer emails on my BlackBerry. Then after work I'd rush home, package up some orders, bring them off to the post office, and that was the business at the time. Back in, I think, 2012, I got an offer from my then employer, who said, well, if you leave the company, you'll get a nice severance payment and you get a chance to do whatever you like. And Again, I made another split-second decision and I decided just go for it. I just went for it. I quit my job and I focused fully on the business. Now, the business at the time was called OrientWatches.eu because we were just selling Orient watches. And when I started working on it full time, I realized that that wasn't the way to go, because ultimately, if you just sell one brand, you're going to be limiting yourself. And if something happens, especially if your entire livelihood depends on it, I mean, if I don't make any money, I couldn't pay my mortgage. So I had to reach out with new brands. And the problem is you can't sell anything other than Orient watches if your name is Orient Watches. So I had to change the name. And I had a bright idea. I went for AutomaticWatch.eu. Automatic watches, we were selling a ton of automatic watches, and that seemed like a very clever idea. Then, after I had rebranded the website, I sort of realized that we also sell quartz watches, which, again, you wouldn't buy a quartz watch from a company called AutomaticWatch.eu. So we had to go back to the drawing board, or better said, I had to go back to the drawing board, and I came up with SeriousWatches. So now we're called SeriousWatches, and we're looking to expand our brands. And the first thought in my head was we need some nice Swiss brands. But keep in mind, this was not 2020, this was quite a few years ago. And back then, the Swiss brands really thought of the internet as some sort of rundown part of time. It was not very chic to have your watches displayed on the internet. So the second, well, I wouldn't say second best thing, but we ran into micro brands. Micro brands are the smaller brands. I'm sure we'll do another video in the future. Did that ruin it? I think so. Shall I ask him if he can just stop doing it for 30 minutes or so? I can tell him that we're doing a recording and that his chainsaw is... So now we're called SeriousWatches, and we really wanted to add some new brands to our collection. And the Swiss really thought of the internet, and keep in mind this was a few years ago, and nowadays it's completely different. But back then the Swiss really thought of the internet as some sort of rundown part of town where you don't really want to be displayed. They didn't think it as chic as a high street shop would be. So we sort of passed those by and came to realize that micro brands would make an excellent addition to our collection, because micro brands don't really need or want the main street exposure, but they love the internet, they love the watch enthusiasts, which were primarily our customers at the time, and it made an excellent fit. So we added several micro brands to our collection, including Zellis and Anken, and along the way we got a few, lost a few, but micro brands really are still to this day a very nice addition to our collection. After a while, the Swiss did join us. We've got several Swiss brands now, and the Swiss really embrace the internet these days. I mean, you can't imagine a Swiss brand not being sold online, aside from certain expensive exceptions. The internet is really just an extension to the retail world. I mean, there's no shame in being sold online, and as long as the retailer does well and represents your brand in a way that you can feel comfortable with, there's nothing wrong with the internet. In fact, it can be better than a high street shop in terms of collection, in terms of service, in terms of how your brand is represented, because you have all these options, videos, images, and you can really represent the brand that you in a way that they want. And we try to do that as well as a retailer. And I'm talking we now because along the way, our team has grown. I've hired several people along the way to join SeriousWatches, and at the moment really the team is what makes SeriousWatches. We have a very excellent watchmaker on staff, we have someone who does our videos, we have someone for the social media, and it's really a team effort. In fact, SeriousWatches wouldn't be what it is without the team, that the people that work there, that get here every day to do a great job at every aspect of the business. And we really want to improve the business and be the best that we can to make the customer happy. Customer happiness is what's really essential for a watch, because no one really needs a watch. Let's be honest, we don't need it. We want it, but we don't need it. There's no rational reason to buy a 200, 300, 4,000, 20,000 euro watch because you know what time it is. You can find out what time it is. That's not really relevant. But you buy a watch to make yourself happy. Our goal is to make you happy because you're buying happiness. And if you buy a watch and it arrives on your door in a FedEx bag covered in newspapers, I mean, that's not really the experience you're looking for. That's not why you worked so hard to buy that watch. And us as a watch dealer, we really want to be the best that we can so we can make the buying experience the most pleasant for you. We literally started doing it like 15 minutes later. You spend a lot of time working or saving up to buy that watch, and for us as a watch dealer, we want to help you make that experience as pleasant as possible. We want to make sure that the watch arrives at your door on time, properly packaged, so that your experience of buying a watch, of making yourself happy, is just that. And that really, I've been told to keep this short, and I've been trying to, but I'm very passionate about the business. I'm very passionate about watches, so I'm try to keep it relatively short to tell you a little bit about who we are, what we stand for, what we do. I mean, it's been 9 years, so it's been quite a while, and a lot has happened. And I hope that you've enjoyed our video. If you have any questions or replies, I mean, get in touch with us, reply on YouTube, subscribe, and all that stuff. Do so, and thank you so much for watching.